Hello, hello. Welcome back to B&J's Little Farm. We've got Wild in the house. She shared me out. Thank you so much. Mega shout out to Wild. Mega shout out for Firefly. Thank you for sharing me out. I appreciate it. I switched my camera around a little bit so you can get like a closer close-up of me, I guess. I played with the camera and the settings on the StreamYard as well. Why did you give me a mad face?
You did.
You just sent me a mad face. Yes, you did. Anyway, so I've been playing around with the cameras. StreamYard settings changed a little bit, so it's letting you like StreamYard vertically now, like on a cell phone. That's kind of a cool new feature. But I moved the cell phone, I moved the little webcam, so I got to remember to look down here instead of up there now. So let's get over to, I forgot to go over to the YouTube side so I can see the chat better. How's everybody tonight? Did you get your dinner in you? I hope all is well. Oop, we don't want to, ew, this is kind of weird like that. I don't know if I like it. Do you like it like this? Ooh, swipe up. Nope, I don't want to swipe up. You guys let me know what you think of this new setup here. Are you on it? It's kind of like, it reminds me of like the TikTok lives. They're trying to be like TikTok. Wild says it looks good. Alright, so we are on chapter 23 in Wings of a Dream. I always read it wrong. I always say it backwards or something. I don't know. This is odd. I can't see your beautiful face. Beautiful face. You can't? Why can't you see my face? But only when typing. Oh, that's so weird. Strange. We're going to leave it for this live and see how it does. And if you guys don't like it, we won't use it again. But I figured we'd see how this new feature is, or at least new feature to me is. And we are going to go ahead and jump into chapter 23. In spite of our dwindling supplies, I invited the 10 Lathams and Sheriff Jeffries to spend Thanksgiving with us. I wanted a festive atmosphere with company around the table. Like the day we heard news of the armistice, I relished the work and exhaustion. It gave me less time to think. Hey Nate, good to see you. On the Wednesday before our feast, I rolled pie crust and peeled and cooked the pumpkins. Even though the air outside hinted of winter, the kitchen burned like summertime. I needed more wood for the stove. I called out the door while I whipped my arms across my forehead. And would someone open the window for me too? James staggered through the kitchen door and opened his arms. Chunks of wood crashed to the floor. Squeezing my eyes shut, I was determined not to scold him for the racket. Thank you. Dan came up behind me, a piece of wood in each hand. He tossed them on top of James's pile. Someone's a-comin'. I threw the wood in the stove before glancing out the window. Far off down the road walked a slender man, a suitcase swinging in his hand. It couldn't be Frank. Not yet. But if not Frank, then who? Fear and excitement, anger and relief jumbled together like berries in a cobbler until I couldn't separate one from the other. Had Arthur changed his mind, come to apologize in person? Did I want him to? Hey Mike the K-Man, good to see you. Vermont, hello, hello. Nate says, how are you doing, B?
Just fine.
Hi, Brian. Brian says hello to you.
Hi, Brian.
Karina, chicken wings. Girl, where you been? You've been MIA. I haven't been getting notifications either, though, for anybody. Hope all is well with you. Did you ever get moved? Let me know. I need to go check out your channel again. See why I'm not getting any notifications. And of course, I can't do it from this side. Hold on, you guys. Sorry. I'm trying to get this channel. Where is... Okay. I'm trying to get this comment. So there's nothing. Get to this channel. Okay, here we go. Now I can go to that channel. There we go. I got you opened up in the background. I'll keep you there so I can go check it out later. Firefly says hi, B.
Well.
Not yet. Alright. Back to our reading. Ollie watched the pies. I ran outside and stepped into the road, my heart fluttering and my stomach in knots. The man waved an arm above his head. Little sister! All my anxiety melted into an astonishment. Will! I raced down the road and threw my arms around my big brother's neck. Oh, there. He stumbled backwards. Don't cry, it's you. It's really you. My tears wet his neck as his hand rubbed a circle on my back. When I finally pulled away to study his face, he appeared much older than when he had left for France more than a year ago. Wrinkles framed his eyes, and a pain glowed from their depths. War had changed him. My hand crept to my throat. Why had my brother shown up unannounced? Is it Mama? I whispered. Is she? Will chuckled a little and shook his head, looking more like a big brother, I remembered. You always could make things seem worse than they were, Rebecca. No, you silly goose. Mama's fine. He lifted one shoulder as if in resignation. She's not in danger, at least, but she wasn't up for big doings either, so I decided to come celebrate Thanksgiving with you. Thank you for helping Wild. Welcome. Jess, much more love. Aw, thank you. All right. My arms dropped to my side. Will had been the stable one, like the thick oak that spread into its arms over our house in Downington. He knew his duty and always did it. If he hadn't stayed home for Thanksgiving, something was definitely wrong. When did you get home? And why didn't anyone tell me? I hooked my arm around my brother's. It felt small and frail, as if my touch might break it. My stomach scored. I was already on my way home when the armistice was announced. I stopped, forcing him to stop too. Why, Will? He stared off into the distance, his eyes narrowing as if he could see all the way to France. I'm dying, Rebecca. They let me come home to die. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Was my heart still beating? Breath and motion returned with a wave of nausea. But before I could ask more questions, Will's mouth lifted in a sad smile. I hear you've become a mother, in a manner of speaking. You'd better introduce me. Taking hold of my arm, he propelled me forward, my feet somehow obeying. An eerie silence stole over the yard, the house. It seemed fitting, given Will's news, so it took me a moment to realize it wasn't normal. Not for this house. Things were rarely silent, even in the middle of the night. Ollie, James, Dan, no answer. Have you lost them already? Will's playful grin settled me somehow. I haven't lost them, I sassed back. At least I don't think I have. I went to the christen first, always afraid one of the boys would fall in while just looking, but the lid remained firmly in place, and the little stool didn't stand near the edge. Hands on my hips, I called again. This time, a giggle drifted up from somewhere nearby. I stepped off the porch, got down on my knees, and peered into the crawl space beneath the porch. 8 eyes twinkled back at me. "If you don't get out from under there, that old opossum's going to come up and eat you up." Squeals and delight, fear accompanied their scramble from their hiding place. They were filthy, of course. I opened my mouth to scold them, but the scent of something burning stung my nose. I sniffed the air again. My pies! I flew into the kitchen and opened the oven. Black smoke poured into the house. I waved it away, coughing as I covered one hand with a dish towel and pulled the first pie from the oven. Instead of a golden brown, the crust looked like dried mud. I dumped it in the wash bucket and pulled the second pie from the oven, even worse than the first. "I hope you don't expect me to eat that," Will pointed at my pies. He lifted Dan off his shoulders and sank into a chair. His breath heavied out in gasps. Beads of sweat clung to his temples. I catered in water to souse the pies. The coffee needed warming too. That would keep my hands busy and my back turned long enough to compose myself from the frustration of burning pies and the shock of Will's news. I couldn't bring myself to ask what he was dying of. Not yet. I only knew it couldn't be contagious or he wouldn't have come. The coffee boiled. I pulled it from the heat and poured a cup for Will. The children soon tired of the newness of the visitor and left to chase the last bit of sunshine. All except Janie. She sat in Will's lap, gazing up at him in wonder. I think she thought Will was her daddy. Some vague baby intuition none of us could quite comprehend. Will didn't seem to mind. He held her, stroked her hair, planted little kisses on her nose. The daughter he'd never have. My shoulders sagged at the thought, but I forced them to straighten again. I had to start new pies. Besides, it helped to have something to do, something to think about. And while I worked, Will talked. About home, about his friends, about everything but himself or the war. Are you fighting off views with a stick? Will asked, bouncing Janie on his knee. I winced as his words unknowingly probed my wound. No. Let's see, did I miss anything in the chat? Hey Wendy, good to see you. Good evening. Glad you could make it. Firefly says I need Vicks. Nest with Murphy. Hey Dr. Oddity, good to see you. Thank you for the hearts. Mike the Caveman says hi, Brother Barrett.
Hello.
Ooh, Dr. Oddity has been a member for 10 months. Woo woo. Alright, I thought I lost my place, but I found it again. That's not what I hear. My head whipped around. What kind of views do you think I have? I'm here with these children all day long. And a fine mess you're making of it, too. His eyes twinkled and teased. I wanted to hit him over the head with my rolling pin. So, you're getting married soon. Do tell. I slammed my rolling pin on the pie dough. Did Mama tell you that? Yes. She seemed to think it was a sure thing. Some junior ace from around here or something. Of course, she hadn't given up on dear Mr. Graves either. I'm not marrying either one of them. I marched the cold, soggy pies to the door and tossed them into the slop barrel before rolling the new pie crust into still warm pie plates. I prayed I had enough pumpkin left in the pot to fill 2 more pies. If not, I guess I could whip up cheese pie instead. Oh, you have other plans then. He sipped on his coffee, set it down, and pushed it away from Janie's reach. I scraped the remaining pumpkin into the pie crust. Yes, I have plans. Mama doesn't know everything. He looked as if he didn't believe that any more than I did. I need my water. My tongue's starting to stick to the roof of my mouth. I thought I brought it over there. I guess I didn't. I must have. Oh, it was right in front of me. Oh well. I got my kale smoothie too. My frog juice. You almost made me lose my water. Firefly says she's getting some pie action. Brother Latham gave a prayer of thanksgiving before dishes clanked, voices chattered, and food disappeared much more quickly than it had been prepared. Will ate well and joined in the conversation, but I didn't. I couldn't seem to get my mind off the fact that my brother was dying, and all my other plans have vanished like ashes in a strong wind. The men and children drifted outside once they'd eaten their fill. Irene instructed her older girls to wash dishes. She and I dried and sorted them. Want to tell me what's happened? Irene's eyes brimmed with sympathy, no trace of aggravation. She handed me a platter, clean and dry. I stared at the dishes as if I had no idea what to do with it. Then I breathed the kitchen air, tainted with the scent of the stale food and soap. My brother's dying. Irene took the plate from my hands, gently prying loose my fingers. Her head shook as she set it aside. I'm so sorry, honey. She put her arm around my waist and led me to the door. You go on and visit with your brother. We'll finish up here. Her voice was as gentle as Mama with a newborn baby. I obeyed, wandering first into the backyard and then around toward the front of the house. Brother Latham had pulled a chair onto the porch. Will and Sheriff Jeffrey sat in the rocking chairs while the gaggle of children frolicked on the lawn. Will looked tired, yet one corner of his mouth lifted as he watched the children laugh and play. I settled myself on the porch step in front of the men, hands clasped around my knees, eyes fixed on the children, ears strained to catch the low concert of voices behind me. I just hoped it what they say. A war to end all wars. Will's raspy voice. I wouldn't want any of those little guys to have to go through what we did. Silence followed. Then Brother Latham rumbled indistinct words. A rocker creaked in its motion. Will coughed deep and long and rattled in his chest like Aunt Annabelle. A shiver traveled down my back as he composed himself. Not sure which was worse, watching those poor souls suffocate in an instant or having to waste away by inches like me. Those gases did their damage in so many different ways. Poison gases. I'd read of them in the newspaper. Were the gases responsible for Will's demise? I turned slightly, hoping Will's words wouldn't stop. Instead, he seemed to speak more clearly, as if he wanted me to know without having to tell me directly. Maybe I didn't get my mask on in time. Maybe some of those gases lingered in the air after I thought it was safe to unmask. Either way, they got into my lungs, and when they don't kill you right away, they cause other things that kill you, like cancer. My throat tightened. Cancer ate away at a person, sometimes for months, sometimes years. I wondered which it would be for my brother. I figured if I'd got to meet my maker soon, I might as well go out living instead of lying around waiting to die. Maybe he'd come to the right place. These kids teemed with life and energy. Thank you, Brian. He says, don't forget to hit that thumbs up. I don't suppose you've given any thought to taking my sister away from all of this. Will's teasing voice caused my head to whip in his direction, just as his gaze settled on the sheriff. Well, Sheriff Jeffries drawled. I tossed them both a grin as sweet as white sugar. I'll thank you very much to leave my life be, big brother. Laughter thundered from deep within Brother Latham's chest. Sheriff Jeffries stared at his hat in his hands. Will's mouth curled into a smile. Hilitary bubbling out of his lungs, damaged by welfare, infected with disease. He looked young again, full of life, and my heart cried. In the quiet of the early morning chores, I told Will about Arthur, letting my silent tears soak into old Bob's side. Will didn't say much, but I could tell his hands itched to pummel the man who'd hurt his sister, so I set him to splitting wood instead. Should I tell Mama? I asked. Down came the axe with a thud. He threw the pieces into the pile and picked up another short log. He leaned on the axe handle and looked at me. I wouldn't just yet. She doesn't need disappointment right now. He hesitated another moment. She did ask me to bring you back home, though. Oh, and are you going to try? He hefted his weapon and brought it down again. The wood fell into halves. He shook his head. No, right now these kids need you more than she does. Anyone can see that. I let out a long breath as Will worked. It felt good to have my brother on my side. When Will couldn't lift his arms overhead one more time, I set the axe in the shed and our slow steps returned to the house. While he lay recovering on the sofa, he regaled us all with stories of battles and ocean crossings and encounters with British soldiers and their funny ways of saying things. At sunset, with supper warming on the stove, I wandered out to the porch and stood behind Will's chair. Resting my hands on his shoulders, he reached up and covered my fingers with his. I smiled. I have to leave in the morning, he said. I'll tell Mama how well you took care of me. I threw my arms around his neck and my cheek pressed against his. Do you have to go? Stay here. I'll take care of you. I couldn't do that to Mama. You know that. I squeezed him again before I nodded, pulled away, and knelt beside his chair, my hand clasping his. How is Mama, Will? Really? Don't worry, Rebecca. She's just weak. He patted my hand. You know, I won't be staying there either. I have things I want to see before I can't, like the Grand Canyon and the Pacific Ocean. A buddy of mine from the war is going with me. But can't? His fingers squeezed mine. I want you to remember me like this, Rebecca, and I want to remember you in this place. Don't worry. You'll get what you want one of these days. Just be patient. I drew in a sharp breath. How did he know what I wanted? And how did he know I'd get it? Did God give the dying special messages? How do you know? The words blurted out on the breath I'd been holding. Because I've watched you. I can see in your every action that you were made for this. This? I huffed. It suits you. A house, a farm, children, the husband who will give it all to you. I rocked back on my heels and stood. That's not what I want, Will. I backed away from his startled look, my hands fidgeting with each other. I'm going to the city. I don't know how or when, but I won't be tied to the seasons and the sun. Don't get me wrong. I want a husband and children or two of my own. But this, I nodded toward the yard beyond the house to the hog, now in its pen, the chickens, the cows, the mules, even the fields further beyond. This is not what I want. I want adventure. I want... His eyes glazed over a bit. I looked away. The children's joyful shrieks carried on the cool breeze. I wondered if memories of children's days invaded Will's head as they did mine. Such simple days. Days I'd once wished away, wanting to be grown up, wanting my life to begin. Now that I've crossed that line, I wish I could go back. Will cleared his throat, pushed to his feet and faced me. I'm sorry, Rebecca, he said. I hope you get what you want. I really do. But be careful. If France taught me anything, it's that the new experiences aren't always what we imagine them to be. He shoved his hands into his pockets and stepped down the steps, leaving me to decide whether or not to throw his advice to the wind. We all piled into the sheriff's car the next morning and drove to the train station. A few people milled around on the platform as the train chugged into view. A lump swelled in my throat. How could I say goodbye to my brother, knowing I might never see him again? He toused the children's hair and tweaked their noses one by one. When he reached for Janie, his ashen face turned slick with sweet in spite of the heatless day. I kept her in my arms and leaned her closer to him so he wouldn't have to strain. His trembling hand caressed her cheek. I handed her to Ollie, put my hand in the crook of my brother's arm, and walked him across the platform to the waiting railway car. All missed, the tears insisted on flowing. He pulled out his handkerchief and wiped my face. Don't cry, little sister. I've made my peace with God. I'm ready. But I'm not, I whispered. If you die, I'll be all alone. Just me and Mama and Daddy. You'll be fine, he said. You've always been the strongest of us all. I had? He chuckled as he lifted my chin and stared into my eyes. You have no idea. A quick hug. Then he disappeared into the train. I watched him through the windows as he found a seat away from the platform and stared out the window. The train whistled, groaned, and inched forward. I waved until the caboose pulled past the platform, even though Will never turned to look. Only as the train snaked out of sight, did I notice Sheriff Jeffries by my side. Chapter 24. December arrived. Would Frank be home in time for Christmas? I guess no. Besides, no soldiers have returned to Prater's Junction. Through the newspaper's prediction, the first of our boys would arrive home before the month ended. I didn't know what to think about Frank coming home. Almost 2 weeks had passed without a letter from him. Could he have been injured just before the armistice? Or maybe, like Will, poison gases made him ill, too ill to write or travel. Then, one afternoon, I pulled an envelope from the box, and Frank's familiar handwriting stared up at me. Miss Hendricks, thank you for the letter telling me of my family. For a little while after I heard of Annabelle's passing, I still received her regular letters, and then I figured I'd have nothing. But your note arrived, and with it I found hope again. Sometimes I wonder if you are an angel instead of a woman, to step in and take care of my kids, my house, with no tie to us other than your aunt's kindness to our family. She talked about you. Did you know that? She missed you and your brother. Hated the falling out with her sister, although she never mentioned the cause. I think she pretended my family was hers, and that was fine with us. For Clara and I didn't have anyone either. I guess she was as close to a grandmother as my children will ever know. Sorry for rambling on so. Not what you expect for a letter from a stranger, I imagine. What I really wrote to say is that I'm due to ship out for the States soon. After a few days of debriefing at a military base, I'll make my way home. You can bet I'll be looking for the quickest way. I'd hate to disrupt your life in any way longer than necessary. Sincerely, Frank Gresham. I scanned a separate page addressed to the children as I wiped the inexplicable wet from my cheeks. Frank was on his way home. The thought thrilled and terrified. Before his homecoming had meant freedom to go to Arthur. Now I didn't know what it meant. I only knew I had no desire to go back to Downington. My eyes locked on the date scribbled on the top of the page, November 18th, 1918. A quick count of days told me he could arrive any time. I needed to come up with some kind of plan for my future, and fast. I read Frank's letter to the children before bed, told them he'd probably already started on his journey home. The boys looked a bit confused, but Ollie's eyes took on the brilliance of stars in the night sky. She sat up with me after the other children lay abed. I leaned my head against the back of the sofa and closed my eyes, my insides wiggling like kittens in a sack. Tell me about school today, Ollie. I felt her curl her body into mine. I draped my arm around her, pulled her close. Garland Winston carved his initials in a tree with Nola Jeans at recess. She acted mad, but I think she liked it. I lifted my head and opened my eyes. Nola Jean's not nearly old enough to concern herself with such things. Ollie shrugged. She's mostly grown, almost 14. Mama married Daddy when she wasn't much older than Nola Jean. Irene had said Clara and Frank had married young, but she'd never managed to reveal much of anything else. Tell me about your mama and your daddy. Ollie stared into a far corner of the room, squinting as if to remember. Mama was 15 years old when she met Daddy. She said she knew right away she'd marry him. She said something in his eyes told her, something deep down, something he didn't even know yet. That's what she said. Something in his eyes. I thought I'd read something in Arthur's eyes too. Maybe I couldn't judge men as rightly as I imagined I could. And yet, I read real friendship in the sheriff's manner, and that had been proven true. What would I read in Frank Gressom's eyes? Anyway, Mama's house was full of kids and empty of money. That's what she said. So when Daddy asked her to marry him, she did. They left the day she turned 16 and never went back. What did her family say? I couldn't imagine surviving Mama's wrath if I had done such a thing. Ollie shrugged. Her brothers and sisters all went other places, and I think Mama got sick and died. I think her mama got sick and died. Don't know about her daddy. She never said. I pondered the history of Clara and Frank, two youngsters embarking on a life all of their own making, the type of adventure I crave so much. Were they pleased with how their lives turned out? Ollie slid off the sofa and gave me a small smile. I think I'll go to sleep now. I pulled her close, kissed her forehead, and sent her on her way. But it was a long while before I could stir myself to put out the lamp and climb the stairs to bed. Late that night, my feet pattered the floor of the bedroom, back and forth, back and forth. The heavy braid down my back swung with each movement like a pendulum on the clock at home, ticking away the time. Every now and then I shivered, even though I wore my flannel gown and the window sash sat firmly against the sill. Frank might arrive tomorrow or next week, almost surely by next month. I chewed my thumbnail down past the round tip of flesh. I paused to listen to the still night, hoping the audible voice of God suddenly would give me clear direction, but only a whippoorwill called in the distance. I bit the inside of my cheek, trying to hold back tears of despair. My coming here had been God's doing. I never once doubted that, but now it seemed he'd made a mockery of all my dreams, and I'd asked for a fish and he'd given me a snake. I sank back into my bed, pulling the quilt close around me, and wondered what advice Irene would give if I had asked. A foolish question, really. I already knew how she'd answer. She'd ask if I'd heard from the Lord on the matter. Pulling my braid over my shoulder, I stroked the tail end, wrapping and unwrapping the curl of hair around my index finger. She'd likely tell me to be patient, to stay still until I knew which way the Lord said to go. At least that's what I'd heard her tell other women at church. Another directionless woman, only that one had been a widow by influenza. I flopped onto my back and yanked the covers over my head, wishing all my problems would just vanish, that the Lord would whisk me away into another place, like he did with Philip after he'd baptized the Ethiopian in the book of Acts. I huffed and curled onto my side, pulling my knees to my chest. There was one more chance that Arthur would land his plane in the cotton field and take me away than that. Firefly says, still listening. All right, Vermont, have a good one. Thank you so much for hanging out. Did I need to search the scriptures more diligently, pray more earnestly? I'd done so much thinking and planning and thinking in the past year that maybe Irene was right. Maybe I needed to just be patient and listen. The words of Frank's first letter to me drifted to mind. His belief that even in something as grievous as death, the Lord had a plan for good. I wanted to believe that with more than just my head, but I didn't understand why Aunt Annabelle had to die, or why Mama and Will had to get sick, or why Arthur didn't keep his promise. But perhaps understanding didn't matter as much as I imagined. Perhaps that was the true definition of faith. Ollie stood beside me, shaking my shoulder in the sunshine-flooded room. Rebecca, wake up. I can't find James anywhere. I wiped the sleep from my eyes and sat up, her words barely making sense to my befuddled brain. Then they crystallized. I stretched my arms over my head, unconcerned. I'm sure he's in the privy or in the barn or with old Bob. You know, he thinks he can milk her all by himself. Ollie's mouth turned downward. He's not either of those places. I looked. My feet hit the floor as I rubbed my face. I'm sure you just missed him. You went to one place while he was in the other. I don't think so. I patted her head and stood. Let me get dressed. I wagered he'll turn up when he smells breakfast cooking. But even the smell of bacon didn't draw him out. Worry tangled itself around my heart like climbing roses on a trellis. Where had that boy gotten to now? I served breakfast to the other three, trying to restrain my concern. Maybe he crawled up in the barn loft and fell asleep. Or maybe he'd gone to the creek alone. I sucked in a breath as I let a prayer run through my head. Please, God, let him be safe. Just let him be safe. Ollie, keep Janie here. Dan and I are going to find your brother. She gave me a worried look, as if she wiped or tried to wipe Janie's gravy-smeared face. What about school? I'm sure we'll be back by the time you need to leave. I grabbed Dan by the hand. I think your brother is playing a game of hide and seek. I could eat up his bacon from breakfast, you know, Dan said. I'm sure you could, big boy. But why don't we wait just a while longer? In fact, why don't we go find James now? I'm sure you know all his best hiding places. Come on. He pulled. I stumbled after him, still hanging onto his hand, a smile tugging at my lips. See? No cause to worry. Dan would lead my direction to James. 2 hours later, Dan scratched his head as I tried to rub feeling into my frozen nose. Are you sure those are all the good hiding places you know? I asked for the 1000th time. I'm sure. His little face screwed up in concentration. Worry choked me, but anger started pruning it back. Where was that boy? When I found him, I'd tan his hide for scaring me like this, not to mention wasting a whole morning and keeping Ollie from going to school. I stared into the distance, wishing I knew which way to go. A half-mile to the east, and we'd come to the Latham's house. 2 miles to the west, and we'd end up in town. James, I called as loud as I could. James Gresham, you get home this instant. What if he was home? My shoulders drooped. No matter which direction we searched next, we'd have to tromp back to the house first and see if he was there. Let's go, Dan. This time I pulled him, his feet dragging behind, his head sagging. Still no sign of James. Back at the house, Ollie's big eyes revealed her fright. I took Janie from her, knowing the baby needed a nap, but knowing also that Ollie needed my presence. We'd have to search together now, in spite of the littler one's exhaustion. Town would be the best option, I decided. More people to fan out and search if we didn't find him there. But he had to be there. He just had to. Fear and worry wove themselves around each other like 2 colors of yarn knitted into a blanket. I picked up 3 tea cakes, 1 for each child, and changed Janie's diaper before we took off again. The trip seemed to take hours as the sun rose higher in the sky. My anger popped and sizzled like butter in a hot skillet as my stomach rumbled with hunger. I'd send him to his room for a week, make him do extra chores, even help in the kitchen with the cooking and the dishes, hold him tight and never let go. If only I could find him. Still listening. Zay88, hello and welcome. This is Wings of a Dream. And we are now on chapter 25, on our last chapter for the evening. If you're new here, I read out of this every Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There are all the other chapters on my channel if you want to go back and listen and catch up. This is the last one of the evening, chapter 25. Sheriff Jeffries sat on the corner of his desk. 2 men I didn't know standing near him, hands in their pockets. The conversation stopped when he stood and looked my way. The moment I saw his face, my mad resolve turned into terror. I need help. In 2 strides he stood before me, his lips pressed into a tight line, concern visible in his eyes. He laid gentle hands on my shoulder. What's wrong? We can't find James anywhere. We've been searching all morning. Desperation streaked each word. Dan hid himself behind my skirt. Ollie and Janie both began to cry. I wanted to join them, but I forced myself to calm. He nodded once. Come with me. He took my hand and led me to Mr. Crenshaw's store. After just a few words from the sheriff, Mr. Crenshaw removed his apron and called into the storeroom. Ruth, James Gresham has gone missing. I'm going to help search. 3 men in the store volunteered to help before Miss Crenshaw appeared from the back room. Go on. She lifted Janie out of my arms. I'll watch the other children. I chased the men to the end of the sidewalk, and that's when a movement in the churchyard near us drew my attention. I peered across the expanse, trying to sort the immovable gray gravestones from the fleeting shadow that had caught my eye. Sheriff Jeffries corralled the men gathering in the street. Mr. Crenshaw entered the tiny newspaper office. I hurried down the steps, past the knot of men, and over the worn track through tall grasses, my gaze intent on that shadow. The wraith bent over above one of the graves, an older one, the weather having already tampered down the mounted dirt. My hand closed on the small gate. It creaked open. James looked over at me, his face a lump of anguish. I had to tell Mama that Daddy would be home soon. His lips twisted, his face puckered. He threw himself at me with a hiccup for a long-held sob. "Oh, baby." I slid to my knees, my face next to his arms curled around my shoulders as I stroked his hair and wept with him. These little ones had been through so much these past months. Some days I wondered if the younger ones even remembered their mother, or if they only remembered the idea of her. And now, the daddy that they hadn't seen in over a year would return, bringing yet another change. My presence offered almost the only consistency they remembered in their short lives. Voices sounded in the distance. I looked up to find a group of men walking in our direction. "I found him!" I picked up James and waved one arm high in the air. "It's okay, I found him." I trotted toward them as fast as I could, James lying like a lump against my shoulder, his arms circling my neck. By the time I reached the building of town, my breath came in gasps and my side ached. Sheriff Jeffries pried James from my arms. I rested my hands on my knees and gulped in air. He was in the churchyard. I glanced sideways at the little face, visiting his mother. I straightened my breathing, returned to normal. "Thank you for your willingness to help. I'm sorry to have called you away from your work." Heat crept over my throat as the men tipped their hats and scattered, all but the sheriff. He looked as if he might embrace me right then and there. Now I wanted to run, but I didn't dare. Instead, I reached for James's hand and led him back to Mr. Crenshaw's store. Yet, Sheriff Jeffries didn't leave my side. A bell jangled above the door as we entered. Dan threw himself into his big brother's arms in the way James had thrown himself in mine. "Safe and sound, I see." Mrs. Crenshaw smiled from where the bolts of cloth lined the shelves further down. "Yes, ma'am." Sheriff Jeffries answered for me, his hat in his hands again. Its spinning made me dizzy. I glanced around the open room. "Where are my girls?" Mrs. Crenshaw straightened a confusion of machine-made lace on a large spool. "Back at my house. I didn't know how long you'd be, and I've learned from experience that minding a baby at a store at the same time doesn't work real well." It made sense Janie wanted to explore everything right now. "Isn't that sweet?" Miss Crenshaw nodded toward the boys who still clung to one another. My heart swelled as full as a corn crib after harvest. I didn't think about the sheriff or Mama or Will or Arthur in that moment. I only knew that for better or worse, these children held a permanent place in my heart, a place that would ache without them nearby. They needed me, and in some funny, confusing, awful way, I'd come to need them. "I'm sure you'll be glad when Mr. Gresham gets home." "I dare say. A young pretty thing like you will be glad to get this brood off your hands and get back to parties and young men." She sighed and rested her chin in her hands, her eyes staring off in the distance. Of course, I didn't have much of that myself. Spent most of my days planting and hoeing and picking cotton, but Mr. Crenshaw rescued me from all of that. She turned her attention back to me. "Or maybe you're waiting on a doughboy of your own?" She raised her eyebrows. My back stiffened. "No." I placed a hand on each boy's shoulder, feeling suddenly protective of them. Mrs. Crenshaw shrugged. "Just as well, but you'll still be glad to give the children back to their father, I'm sure." "Of course I would be. Wouldn't I?" The reality of Frank's homecoming slammed into my chest. He'd snatched the children away from me. I'd lose them just as I'd lost so many others I loved. Tears spilled from my eyes. I pushed past Sheriff Jeffries and ran from the store, past the churchyard where Aunt Annabelle lay, past the schoolyard where James had fallen in the old well. I ran ran until my boot caught on a clog of dirt and I fell to the earth, my tears mingling with the dead grass and the dust. Angry tears, relieved tears, jealous tears, tears of exhaustion and confusion, and grief and disappointment. Why? Why did you make me love them? I flung the words towards heaven, but it was Irene's voice that answered back in my head. A man's heart devilish his ways, but the Lord directeth his steps, she'd say. Sometimes the Lord directs us away from our own plans and towards his. I thought of Aunt Annabelle's plans and Will's, even Frank's and Clara's. None of their plans for life had worked out as they had expected. Will had accepted that. He'd chosen to live the last of his days as best as he could. What would Frank do? Would he want me gone the minute he arrived with no warning, no time to adjust? Would he cling to his children or hold them at a distance? Would he muddle along alone or begin searching for a new wife right away? And if he did marry, would she love her instant family? Oh God, help me know what to do. Then all I knew were sobs, my heart crying out prayers my mouth didn't know how to utter. A buzzing sound from above. I lifted my head. An airplane whizzed across the cloudless expanse, its wings suspended on nothing but air. I drew my knee close to my chest and watched it soar. When Arthur's airplane rose into the sky, how did he know it would stay up there and not come crashing down? He didn't. He simply trusted that the airplane would work the way it had been designed. Is that what God wanted from me? Just to trust that he'd hold me up, take me where he wanted me to go? I kept my eyes on the heavens. I want to go your way, Lord, whatever that means, wherever you lead. And that's it, you guys. That was chapter 25. So good. Hope you enjoyed that. We got quite a few more chapters to go. I think there's like 40, can't remember, 42, 43. We got 45 chapters total, so not too many. We're at the halfway, we're over the halfway mark. So, can't wait for next week. I hope you guys enjoy that. Oh wow, we got 10 in the chat. We got 10 people watching. Nice. We got 7 thumbs up. I'll put my thumbs up so I can have 8. Oh no, I refreshed the page. It says 16 thumbs up. Awesome. Nice, nice. Hey Tom. Hope you're doing well. What's for dinner? I had cheeseburgers and my kale smoothie and pickles. You're welcome, Jen. And this morning I was on my live this morning and I made some of my, I can't talk, that book really made me tired. I'm like in comatose state right now. But I made my keto granola this morning, and so I ate some of that for lunch. That was super good. That was an awesome snack. Tasty frog juice. Got my frog juice here. Yum, yum, yum. Brian says, sounds good. I've been craving lots of like salty sweet stuff lately, and that might be because of me not smoking anymore. I don't know. But definitely salty and sweet stuff. And the granola definitely hit the spot. It's weird. I can see myself like out of the corner of the screen on my phone. And it distracted me. So we just ended The Wings of a Dream. We did 3 chapters tonight. Thank you all who stuck around and listened to it, who enjoyed it. Hey Marshmallow Man, good to see you. Oh, where did it go? and just like went away. Oh, there it is. I'm gonna have a double bacon cheeseburger and french fries for dinner. That sounds really good. Congratulations on not smoking. I caught holy hell last time I quit. You're welcome. Thank you. Wild says, yeah, I'm trying really hard, you guys. I ain't gonna do it. I ain't giving in. Not this time. This is the longest I've ever went. I almost had a slip up today. Almost. I had to talk myself out of it. But Barrett was smoking a cigarette and I walked past it. It smells so good. It sounds bad, but it's still, it smells so good. And I grabbed it out of his mouth and I went to take a drag off it. I'm like, nope. And I gave it back to him. I'm like, I'm not going to do it. But it did. It smelled really good. Hey, Jeffrey. Good to see you. He said, Bear said, give it a couple more days. It won't smell good. It'll start smelling nasty to you. I was like, I don't know. Cool, Jess. I'm glad you are doing good with it. Hugs. I don't know if I'm doing good with it, but I ain't smoking. He's gonna try to quit after I'm done going through my, you guys, I'm a hot mess. I'm not nice. I'm mean right now. I'm a very mean person. So, as soon as I go through my withdrawals or whatever I gotta go through, then he'll quit. But we can't be both at each other's throats at the same time. We're already at each other's throats. So if he's going through nicotine withdrawals too, I don't know. We might not make it. That's not my boyfriend. That's just a friend, Jeffrey. I'm married. Darren's birthday was the only one a few days ago, and he's just a friend. But that's the good part, Wild says. Wendy says, just hang in there, Jess. I'm trying. I'm trying so hard. It's hard, too, because, like, I can't, like, I've got, gum, but I can't chew the gum too much. It's got, erythritol and stuff in it, which is good. So I can chew that every once in a while, but, like, I wish I had, like, a candy, like a hard candy I can chew on or something. I need to go get some sunflower seeds. Mooney said earlier, sunflower seeds. That's a good idea. Not you mean you quitting. Backdoor, no. Additive withdrawal, yeah. Brian says, proud of you, Jess. Thank you, Brian. I mean the one you live with. Wish him a happy birthday, please. Oh, well, it's not his birthday, Jeffrey. His birthday's in November. Wild says, yes, sunflower seeds keep your fingers and mouth busy. I have sunflower seeds, but they're shellless. I think I need to have the ones with this. I need the shell on it. Try more meats and lots of fats. Tom says you can definitely do it. Seriously, Firefly? You're funny. Carrot sticks to celery sticks. That's a good idea too. I've been spending a lot of time in the greenhouse and then planting a ridiculous amount of plants that I should not be planting. Firefly, ha. I'm glad you're having fun, Firefly, with all your butt action. Oh my gosh. I went to screw up in the chat and I scrolled to some other live. That was creepy. I think my rating put Barrett to sleep, you guys. Where did he go? He disappeared. Brian's laughing with Firefly. So tomorrow's supposed to be super nice. It's supposed to be, well, not super nice, but nicer than what it's been. It's supposed to be in the 50s. It's supposed to be sunny. And Firefly says party time. And so hopefully he'll have a chance to work on that water line and we'll get some water. And then next Wednesday, hopefully we can do a live in the RV, Wake with Jess. I tried this morning. Everybody was still asleep. I went live super, super early. I shouldn't have went live so early, but I was awake. And I had to get some stuff done. So I figured I'd bring y'all along. But it was what it was. It was a trial run. He's straight passed out, y'all. He's gonna be up all night. I guess at least my voice is soothing. Put some people to sleep. Alright, Tom, you too. Thanks so much for coming in, hanging out. Wife brought home oysters. Guess who gets to shell them? It's funny, we were talking about oysters the other night. Or no, it wasn't oysters, never mind. It was mussels we were talking about. One of my daughters tried a mussel for the first time. She was not a fan at all. Wild says have fun, they're yummy. We got 14 watching. I jumped from 14 to 12. That's funny. I got mussels. Murphy! Hi, buddy. What you doing, kitty? Murphy, what you doing? Let's see. I got muscles want to see me flex. Let me see. Jen says, yes, Marshmallow. Yes, we do. Mussels grow on oyster traps. You too, Tom. Have a good one. Murphy's looking around because I'm talking to him. Tomorrow's Sunday, y'all. These weeks, these days, they're like flying by. Or is it just me? Like, we literally just did Friday night mixer, and then it's like I turn around and Monday resets here. It's crazy. Today was a pretty lazy day. We didn't really do much because it was cold and windy and just outside. It looked like it was going to rain all day. It rained this morning like super early, but it looked like it was going to continue raining all day, but it didn't. It was just gross out and cold. So basically, I laid around all day. I did like the things I had to do, you know, like I did my live this morning and I fed my chickens, and then I did my evening chores of watering the animals, but wasn't really into doing anything today. I need it to be warm and have my vitamin D so I can get out there. That's the only time I'm motivated. I know, Jen. She says a week feels like a few days, but Bible says time will go faster. It's so crazy. Palm Sunday tomorrow. It's been raining here all day today. Ugh. I can't deal with the rain. We need to move somewhere warm that stays warm all the time. My plants are doing really, really good, Brian. At least I think so. I think they look good. Like my brassicas, they're all about this tall right now. I need to do a video, and that's what I've been waiting for. Warm weather so I can get these videos out to you. But yeah, my brassicas are about like this big now. They got nice, they all have their true leaves now. So each of them have like at least 4 leaves on them. But they're good size. They probably could be transplanted outside. But with the rain the last couple of days, it's too wet and muddy. I can't get them in the ground until it dries up just a little bit. Barrett and I went out to the garden and was tinkering around the other day. Like I said, it was just too cold to do anything. But we were tinkering around out there, and I was picking up old tags and whatever trash that had blown into the garden, and picking up all the tomato stakes and stuff that was left out. And I checked my peas. My peas are starting to sprout, so I'm super excited about that. This might be the first year I might have a successful pea harvest. So the shelling peas and the sugar snap and whatever they're called, sweet peas, they're all germinating. Super excited about that. Next Sunday is Easter. Pouring here all day too. Yeah, right, Firefly. You trying to get me boxed? We'll be boxing for sure. I'm already mean as mean can be. I can't do that too. I need an orange. I was reading, what was I reading on oranges today? So I think they were saying that vitamin C, like oranges and stuff like that, help with nicotine cravings too or something. I can't remember. I've had so much information. I've been researching going in my brain. I can't hold it all in there anymore. Who's notifying me? Why does my live keep disappearing on me? Does that happen to you guys? The world. We had rain yesterday and early this morning. I don't know if I like this live, you guys. Got poop? Not yet. Actually, 2 days ago, Firefly, I thought I was gonna die. But I remembered I gotta eat the pecans. Look up pecans. Just saying. Pecans are good for you. She said, oh my God, you asked. But what? But yeah, that's also, let's see, we got onions coming up. The onions, I wish I would have planted them sooner. I thought I got them out soon enough, but I planted them, I think I planted them the end of February, and they're still only like this tall. I think next year I'll plant them in either late January or early February and see if they do a little bit better. You said, but I don't know. I don't remember. I get talking and rambling. I don't remember, Firefly. So basically that's all it's, well, all my herbs are coming up too. I've got the toothache plant coming up. All my hibiscus, my Roselle Thai hibiscuses came up. I'm trying to think, my parsley's come up, my cilantro. all the herbs like that came up. And then I guess my tomato plants have just started coming up too, but they're just itty bitty things. They're just tiny. They only got 2 leaves right now. And my peppers have not sprouted yet, which I didn't expect them to. It's still cold. I did start the tobacco seeds. I don't know. They have not sprouted yet. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. That's going to be a curveball too, y'all. Growing tobacco. Not only growing the tobacco, but then you got to cure it. I think that's what you call it. Cure it. You got to learn how to cure it, and then I don't know. That's going to be a total learning curve for me, because I don't know what I'm going to be doing. Let's just hope the tobacco grows first, and then I guess we'll go from there. Onions are healthy also. I hope so. Oh, so a lot of you were asking about piglets. The piglets, I have locked in, so we will be having piglets in at least 2 months. So that's another project we'll be working on, is pig pens. Those are locked in. So I worked on selling some chickens today to try to help cover the cost of the piglets. I sold 6 chickens out of the main coop today, which were like the Barbed Rocks, the Comets, just like my backyard chickens, you know. And then the people that bought those, they seen Barrett's Fuzzy Tops, y'all. And they offered him a bit of money for the Fuzzy Top, because I told them they weren't for sale. And they're like, oh, but she's so gorgeous. She's so gorgeous. We'd love to have her. And they offered Barrett an amount that he couldn't refuse. So one of his Fuzzy Tops, it would be, I can't remember which one it is. I'll have to double check tomorrow. But it was either Fireflies or Mooney's chicken. Your chicken got a new home. Oh, and then last night it was Friday night, Barrett was trying to tell you guys on the live, but it's kind of hard to talk when we're live and stuff, and I don't like sad news. But we had 2 rabbits in the last 2 days give birth, and they're such young rabbits, I don't think that they knew what the heck they were doing or anything like that. And because they had to have had them in the middle of the night, I wasn't out there with them. So we lost 2 litters of rabbits in the last couple of days, which kind of sucks. So we're going to wait a month. Or we'll probably wait until the end of this month until we breed them again. And then hopefully, I think it's 30 days. 30 days rabbits have babies. So it'll be nicer. What do you mean what? It's either yours or Mooney's that got sold. Is that what you mean? Like what? I've got a bunch of eggs in a nest. I threw some Americana eggs in there. I threw some lavender eggs, and I threw some of the Fuzzy Top eggs in there, and I'm hoping that one of the chickens will go Brody and sit on them so I can have baby chicks this year. Otherwise, if I don't have any chickens that go Brody, then we're out of luck with new babies this year, because I can't be hooking up the incubators this year. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully somebody goes Brody. Yeah, it was a bummer because I think the first rabbit, Barrett found the first rabbit the first night, and it only had 3. I believe it only had 3 kits. I'm not sure, I wasn't out there. But the second rabbit last night, I was the one that found that one. Oh, talk about devastating. 8 kits. She had 8 of them. So yeah, that would have been a nice little income. So we'll try again, and hopefully the next time they'll do better. But I don't understand, like, they have nesting boxes in there. They didn't even try to have them in the box. They just had them on the outside, and just, they had hay in there, in the nesting boxes. They didn't even try to pull hair. Like, most rabbits, before they have kits, they, like, pull their hair out to make a nest. They didn't even do that. And the one I found, anyway, she just had the kits all over the cage, outside of the nesting box. It was so weird. No hay, of course, was around it. So they probably just froze to death, and she didn't know what to do. So sad. The baby cows, they're doing good. They're doing really good. I was hoping that Rebel and Brutus would have bred by now, but I don't think he knows what he's doing. He tries, but I should have named him Goofy or something. Doopy. Dopey. Something. He's a big old... He don't know nothing. He's goofy as heck. Where's the beef? Beef's right out the window right there. So yeah, I think that's all that's really going on right now with the animals. Brian says, wow. He is so, like, Brutus, he is so clumsy and just, I don't even know how to describe him. He's so goofy and clumsy. He, like, escaped out of their, like, I let them run loose, Rebel and him, in the chicken yard right now. And then, like, during the day, I've been letting them run in with the cows, right? Well, I didn't want them to, and usually we're outside with them. I don't trust them yet alone. So I didn't want to stay outside because it's cold and nasty out today. So, like, Brutus escaped out the gate and into the cow paddock, which I didn't want him to because I didn't want to stay out there. And, like, he knew he was in the wrong. He knew I was mad at him. And he was just, like, running. But when he was running, it was, like, slow motion. He was, like, doo, 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 doo. Like, he was so goofy. I'm like, oh, I can't even with him right now. I'm like, get back here. Brian said, wow. Maybe more rabbits, yeah. I don't know how long I should wait before I try to breed them again. Like, I feel really bad. I don't want to, like, just throw them back in again and potentially hurt them. But, yeah, that was pretty sad. Yeah, maybe more rabbits and chickens and hopefully all the spring babies. You know how much I love the spring babies. So, but I do have several videos I want to get recorded. I've been working on behind the scenes, and I need to get them recorded for y'all so I can get edited and up on the channel. How are the baby cows' noses? Their noses are fine and soft and squishy. I love the cows' noses. I love animal noses. That's like my favorite thing. And they're obsessed. The cows and the dogs, they're obsessed with, like, my hair. I don't know why. If I bend down or I'm doing something, getting some hay or whatever I'm doing, man, the cows will lick my hair. And if you ever felt a cow's tongue, it's like the roughest sandpaper you ever felt. It hurts so bad, and they're like clear across my head. I'm like, oh my gosh. They try to lick my cheek or my forehead too, and I won't let them because it hurts too much. But another thing about the Dexters, I don't know if this is other cows too, because I never tried it with anybody else. But the black sunflower seeds. The black, what do they call them? The black oil sunflower seeds, I think is what it's called. It's basically bird feed. Just the seed though. Them cows, they eat that stuff up. They love black sunflower seeds. I don't know why. They fight over them sunflower seeds like crazy. Wild. I knew that would bring you out of the woodworks. She says, laugh out loud. Yes, they try to eat my hair, twirl it around their tongue and pull. It hurts. They're horrible. But the dogs do that too, like especially Rebel. If I'm sitting on the ground, like trying to groom them, brush them, or whatever, they get burrs in their dew claws and stuff. Brutus does, and I'll be trying to groom him or whatever, or trying to groom her, and she'll go behind me, and she'll literally bite my bun, and like, she tries to like rip my bun out. She thinks it's so fun. I'm like, stop. So if I'm not getting attacked by the dogs, I'm getting attacked by the cows. And if it's not them, it's the chickens. Oh my goodness. And that's Hannah. She has a long tongue. Ooh, the daughter came today and brought an incubator full of eggs for me to look after since they are off grid. That's awesome. Yes, buns equal buns. They like grain. Yep. All right, Jen. Have a good night. Thank you so much for hanging out as long as you did. I know I'm rambling now. I should probably get off here as well. I'll leave you playing. Okay, that's what she said. I have a bun all the time. I do too. It's the only way to keep it off my face. It aggravates me. My hair's so thick too. It gets so hot. I can't stand it. But yeah, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you so much for sitting here rambling off with me about the homestead and listening to me read the book of Wings of a Dream. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Remember, you're not alone. You're loved. Stay happy, healthy, and safe. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.